Okay, dear friends, online, offline, welcome to Peking University to join this event. I'm Bingbing from the Institute of Carbon Neutrality, and today's event is the second great climate talk. And I know, I come from climate field, and my institute focuses on carbon neutrality. So in Chinese, when we talk about great climate, it's 大气候. It means not only climate, it's bigger than climate, it's a kind of environment. And now when we talk about climate change, carbon neutrality, to be frankly, as I observed, most of the people in this field, we only care about carbon, CO2, right? And greenhouse gas. So what else we should think of? This is why I initiate this talk series, and I'd like to invite the thinkers around the world top thinkers to join us from like humanities, anthropology, ecology, sociology, philosophy, etc. And thus we can invite them share their opinions, especially their understanding on a little bit technical term, carbon neutrality. So today, I'm very honored to say that we have 6 co-organizers. So besides my institute, we also have Yale University Forum on Religion and Ecology, and the Peking Institute of Advanced Humanities Studies, led by Professor Du Weiming, and Yale Center Beijing, and the Peking U's Office of International Relations, and the Peking U's College of Urban and Environmental Science. So thank you so much for all your great supports. So today, you may find that we have 2 distinguished guests, Mary Evelyn Tucker and John Grim. You may find that they are a couple who love each other so deeply, and it's another kind of a role model, right? And I'd like to introduce Mary and John shortly. So Mary and John are affiliated faculty at the Yale School of Environment. They direct the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology, which arose from 10 conferences they organized at the Harvard Center for the Study of World Religions. They are serious editors of the Harvard volumes from the conferences on religion and ecology. Tucker specializes in East Asian religions, especially Confucianism. John specializes indigenous traditions, especially Native American religions. Mary and John have written a number of books and created 6 online courses in religions and ecology, restoring the Earth community. They are students of Thomas Berry, who visited China in 1948. I remember that point. And then, from then on, Thomas Berry loved this country as same as me. And Berry was a major inspiration for Journey of the Universe, an Emmy Award-winning documentary, which was shown the day before yesterday in this campus. And the show attracted more than 300 participants. I noticed some of you joined the event with us. Thank you so much. Of course, Mary and John are the co-executive producer of this award film. Their introduction is a bit long. I have to just stop here. I'm sure you will have your own judgment insights on the couple during their speech after a while. Today we have 3 sessions. So the first one is Mary and John will share their understanding on eco-civilization and climate change. And it's around half an hour at least, and then followed by a dialogue, a great climate talk between me and Mary and John. And then it's an interaction, Q&A sessions. So I believe you will have a lot of questions and very curious about this field. So please prepare for your questions. Now please join me to share our biggest applause to Mary and John for their lectures. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Wang Binbin. You have been such an incredible host to us, a friend, and a leader here in China and the world. We're so, so grateful. And I want to highlight the cooperation of the sponsors here that Binbin has organized of her Institute for Carbon Neutrality, along with the Institute for Advanced Humanistic Studies, also here at Peking University, that was started by Du Weiming, the noted Confucian scholar, in 2008. And we have the director here, Huan Qi, and the secondary director, Naomi Zhang, and the staff of both of these institutes are very, very important for the success of this conference. And tomorrow we will speak at the Yale Center Beijing, so we thank them as well. But I want to highlight right here in Beijing University the cooperation of a Center for Science on Climate Change and Policy and Communication, along with a Center for Humanities. So here we have the science, social science, and humanities working together for solutions for our common future, especially along the line of ecological civilization. And that's what the Yale Forum has been doing as well for more than 25 years, bringing together all the disciplines for a flourishing future. And along with that, as we make a tribute to Thomas Berry that Binbin mentioned, we're very grateful to Yang Mei and her assistant and student who's come up, because they have translated Thomas Berry's book, The Great Work. So we're very, very grateful and delighted to have students also who've graduated from Yale.
I join Mary Evelyn in these thanks, and I also want to affirm that our presence here in China is to affirm strong relations between our countries and to nurture that deep friendship.
So, and we look forward to your questions and comments. So first we're going to begin with a general notion of what is ecological civilization. It's an aspiration for the future that's arisen in China over the last 25 years, but now spreading to the West. It means moving from an industrial society with unlimited economic growth that is polluting land, air, and water, to an ecological civilization that provides a basis for the well-being and health of both people and planet. So moving from sustainability to flourishing. This is a broader vision for systemic change in China, and it's in the Chinese Constitution since 2018 to promote the coordinated development of material civilization, political civilization, spiritual civilization, social civilization, and ecological civilization. And I want to emphasize there's nowhere on the planet that has such a comprehensive idea of this. It's an idea that needs to be realized fuller, but I want to note that comprehensive perspective. Now, Binbin has been working for many decades on this idea of carbon neutral goal for China and for the world. We have good news from China because in 2020, China announced that it aims to peak emissions before 2030 and go carbon neutral by 2060 in accordance with the Paris Climate Agreement. If accomplished, it would lower the expected rise in global temperature by 0.2 to 3 degrees. And this is considered the best single reduction ever estimated by the Climate Action Tracker. So China is a leader in this issue, and Binbin's institute is very important. The major transition then is toward renewable energy, as we know, in China and around the globe. So here in China, from unsustainable coal power plants, in September 2021, China said it will not build coal-fired power projects abroad. Also, it's moving towards sustainable solar panels and electric vehicles, and we know that China is the world's largest producer of these. But even more than the physical energy, we're talking about renewing the human spirit, new human energy for this work, this transition. So reviving a worldview that promotes a viable planetary future.
This paradigm shift is needed for both people and planet, obviously. This implies shifting from an anthropocentric to an ecocentric worldview in China and the West, namely from a human-focused perspective to an organic, holistic worldview. An anthropocosmic worldview, then, in a Chinese context, implies a broad paradigm shift from a human-dominating worldview to a recovery of an anthropocosmic worldview where humans are situated within the cosmos and Earth. This is obviously needed around the world, in Asia, in the West, and is already present in native traditions. Harmony with nature, tian ren he yi. Humans are not independent from the world, but interdependent with the dynamic unfolding forces of heaven, universe, and earth. This is compatible with the sciences of evolution and ecology, as well as with traditional Chinese thought. It fosters an organic holism and harmony of humans with nature in Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. This shift, then, is happening in Chinese universities and in the academy. When we visited first China in 1985, we've seen many changes over the years. Now, in September of last year, 2023, we experienced and saw the presence of ecological civilization in ideas and practice at numerous academic institutions that we visited, from Datong in the north to Pu'er in the south. So along with the revival of Chinese philosophy and culture is this shift.
Our encounter with China and Confucianism began very early because, as been mentioned, our early interest in China was sparked by our teachers Theodore de Bary and Thomas Berry. They traveled to Beijing in 1948 to study Chinese language and culture, especially Confucianism. Then they taught us Chinese traditions at Columbia University and at Fordham University. Thomas Berry, our teacher, he was a scholar of world religions. He directed the History of Religions program at Fordham. He had 25 PhD students there. He was a specialist in Confucianism, and he realized the environmental crisis very early. But he encouraged our work in world religions and ecology at Harvard, as well as the Journey of the Universe film. Theodore, or Ted de Bary, was also our teacher. My grandfather was his teacher, actually. And Ted de Bary was the foremost scholar of Neo-Confucianism in the West. He had many publications and conferences, both in Asia and in the West. He helped to create Asian studies in the United States through courses at Columbia on China, India, Japan, and Korea, and especially with translations of the Asian classics. We have to remember that 75 years ago, there were very few translations available in English. And one of the leading figures who worked with Ted de Bary was Chan Winsett. We say Winsett Chan. And he was also my teacher at Columbia. He came every Friday for courses on Confucianism with Ted de Bary. He was devoted, one of the most important Chinese scholars. He came to Harvard in 1926 for his PhD. So a Confucian scholar and translator, much beloved in the West. He did the source book in Chinese philosophy in '63 with Princeton.
Yeah, just a second.
Yeah, you're right. That's right. Good. And the sources of Chinese tradition with Ted de Bary. And Jushi, he did the reflections on things at hand, and Wang Yangming also. So very important scholar. Now, this transmission of the way, the Tao, In the life of Winsett Chan, we've seen one of the most extraordinary examples of a modern-day cross-cultural transmission of the way. Winsett Chan, having done more than any scholar in the world to foster that remarkable transition of the way to the West, was in the closing years of his life engaged in its retransmission back to China because it had almost disappeared. An achievement that made him an altogether worthy successor to his own master, the great 12th century Neo-Confucian Zhu Xi. He was a creator and a transformer. Now, Du Weiming, who we know is one of the leading scholars of Confucianism, especially Neo-Confucianism, to the West, and has a special institute here in China, director of this Institute for Advanced Humanistic Studies. He is now also a research professor and senior fellow at the Asia Center at Harvard, where he taught for many, many years. He also taught at Princeton and at Berkeley. And we published together 2 volumes on Confucian spirituality with scholars from the US and China. Now, Du Weiming did a very special article for Daedalus, which was the American Academy of Science and of Arts and Science. The issue was on religion and ecology, can the climate change? But the ecological turn in new Confucian humanism was his topic. And he says, by identifying the comprehensive unity of heaven, earth, and humanity as a critical contribution to the modern world, key figures in Neo-Confucian thought signaled the movement from both retrieval and reappropriation of Confucian ideas.
Another thinker that has been very influential in our projects is Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, 1881 to 1955. Chardin was a Jesuit paleontologist and geologist of Earth and universe history. His scientific research in China from 1926 to 1935 focused largely on recovering fossil evidence, many of which is still on display in museums here in China. In 1939 to 1945, he participated in the discovery of Peking man at Zhoukoudian. Teilhard's anthropocosmic ideas inspired many, including Our Journey of the Universe film and book. Teilhard's thought then is a close link to traditional Chinese thought, and it inspired us to lead the American Teilhard Association for 40 years. Another influence that has come to us is the British philosopher and mathematician Alfred North Whitehead, whose dates 1861-1947 indicate his movement into the modern era and bringing his thoughts on process thought. As a process philosopher and mathematician, then, Whitehead's contributions are very similar to the dynamic, holistic philosophy of Confucianism and Taoism. He is now an important philosopher in dialogue between China and the West for ecological civilization, and this is continued at the Center for Process Studies and Postmodern Development of China, located in Claremont Colleges, California, where they have held 17 conferences on ecological civilization. They have led largely by the process thinkers Drs. John Cobb, Wang Zhihe, and Fan Meijun.
Now, Pan Yue is someone you may know as one of the leading ministers in China, but also a scholar, an intellectual. So he's like the Confucian scholar and public official, but also a literati. And he has encouraged ecological civilization from 2006, when he was Vice Minister of China's State Environmental Protection Administration from 2003 to 2016. And it was then that we met him in his office, and he was very excited about the idea of traditional Chinese values for ecological culture. He's now Director of National Ethnic Affairs, and that's from June of 2012, and we were just 2022, and we were just with him in Xinjiang for a conference of 5-6 days on the history and future of Xinjiang. It was an extraordinary conference. And Pan has promoted this green GDP, for many, many years, but he notes especially that environmental laws can't be enforced without environmental culture and values. So ecological civilization and cultural values, which will lead toward a new understanding of the problems of climate change and biodiversity loss, etc. Because he and we, and many scholars in the West, understand that the ecological values from the world's cultures can inspire diverse perspectives on environmental ethics. And this is true in both China and the West. The Harvard World Religions and Ecology Project from 95 to 98, 10 conferences and 10 books were published. Confucianism and Ecology and Taoism and Ecology and Buddhism and Ecology were published, translated into Chinese, and we're having them republished soon in Chinese. The World Religions and Ecology series brought together 800 scholars from all over the world, and the idea then was retrieval, reevaluation, and reconstruction. How you retrieve these values of Confucianism or Taoism and Buddhism, how you re-evaluate them, and how you reconstruct them. That's the hope for our future ecological ethics. Now, Confucian holistic worldview and ethics implies an anthropocosmic rather than anthropocentric perspective, as we said. It's an organic holism, the unity of cosmos, heaven, earth, and humans. And it is a dynamic vitalism of material force, or qi, and has a comprehensive ecological ethics that humans and nature are one. Now, many of you know these ideas, but they're not necessarily known in the rest of the world. And they are very rich ideas. Our students at Yale have been very excited by them. Even the notion of qi as matter-energy, a non-dualistic idea, that there's a life force in the air, the water, the plants, the fish, the birds, the land, and in humans. So we need to cultivate that qi. So I will speak later about the great learning and its importance for an ethics for the environment, but we're going to move towards a conclusion here with some words from the Neo-Confucian philosopher Zheng Sai from the 11th century.
The Western inscription, "Heaven is my Father."
You did it too fast there. There it is.
Thank you. "Heaven is my Father, and earth is my mother, and even such a small creature as I finds an intimate place in their midst. Therefore, that which fills the universe I regard as my body, and that which directs the universe I consider as my nature. All people are my brothers and sisters, and all things are my companions." The sage identifies her character with that of heaven and earth, and the worthy is the most outstanding person. Even those who have no brothers or children, wives or husbands, are all my brothers who are in distress and have no one to turn to.
So this brings us to a filiality of compassion and care. We need this comprehensive environmental ethics. We only have ethics for humans, maybe human and heaven, but we don't have ethics for the earth. And this is an ethics that's expanded to include the cosmos as father, earth as mother, not simply metaphorically, but in practice. So exercising respect for nature, not over-exploiting it. And another tradition that picks this up, another text, is the Zhengyong, the mean, which urges humans to align with the dynamic and nurturing forces of heaven and earth, which we are doing with the renewable energy of solar, of wind, and geothermal. And now we can do it with human energy as well.
So these deep values coalesce in a method that we can describe as initially reciprocity. And this refers to the importance of working for the common good and not simply for individual gain. In a Confucian context, this implies both individual self-cultivation and communal effort for a flourishing society.
Reintegration. This indicates combining knowledge and practice to contribute to the betterment of society. In a Confucian context, this implies educating oneself in practical matters, such as science and technology, as well as matters of principles and values in the humanities.
Renewal, which points to the need for renewable energies for people and the planet in making the transition to ecological civilization and net zero carbon emissions. In a Confucian context, this implies shifting to regenerative energy processes and limiting consumption for both the environment and the individual.
So this is a shared planetary dream. We have the knowledge of science, policy, law, technology, economics to make the shift, but we need ecological culture and values to create the context for ecological civilization to flourish in China and the West. So we invite all peoples, all cultures, all natures to join in this mutual effort for the future of the whole Earth community. Thank you very much. And I should mention that if you want the QR code, especially for ecological civilization, we've just created a new website for that at the Yale Forum on Religion and Ecology, and we invite you to contribute to it as you see essays or events on ecological civilization. So a bridge from China to the West.
Thank you so much for the brilliant sharing. Let's have a short break, 2 minutes for my colleagues to prepare for the dialogue. Choose which one you want.
Oh,
You did a very good job, and you mentioned a long time about carbon neutrality.
that's good. We have to do our duty.
Yeah, you have the like the document, like the word vision, word version, or just the recommendations. It's very nice to hear. So let's start the talk, and I'm very excited to really hear your updated thinking about the synergy between eco-civilization and carbon neutrality. Just now you mentioned a bit, and you also review where you come from, and from your teacher, and also from a lot of smart people in the traditional China. So I think this is the value of Chinese culture, and this is also the value for our Chinese people should value it. So thank you so much to share this kind of thoughts and inspire us to rethink our own culture, and especially this culture echo what you mentioned is not only about China, it's about the world. And now as we observed, the world is a bit messy, a lot of political crises and wars. So I think this is also why it's the right timing for us to think the value, the common value in front of all of us, where we should go. And just now you mentioned a lot of Chinese smart people. So may I ask, which one impressed you most? Because you also have a long journey. You are the producer of Journey of a Universe, but your life journey also full of different kind of wonders and different, also a lot of mentors. So I'm curious, who is your mentors?
I would like to make a very clear memory for all of you that is formative in my life, and that is joining in the ritual with the Native American people. We say in English Sundance. That's actually a catch-all term. The Crow people, in their own language, Apsaloke people, they are named after a mythic bird. They have a ceremony in which they gather as a people to renew the land, the biodiversity, and they renew themselves in this ceremony they call Dancing in the Cosmic Lodge. And they build a structure. And 10 times I have participated in this ceremonial, and it has given me a direction in life, attention to the cosmos, to the sun which nurtures us, and the renewal of this world that we ground on, land on.
So what John is referring to in relation to Binbin's question is we have also had leaders and teachers from the indigenous peoples, and it's been very profound in our life because Thomas Berry opened that door. And then the leaders that were referenced here, or our teachers referenced here, it's hard to pick one, of course, because each one was so special. As I mentioned, Ted DeBerry was a student of my grandfather. My mother went to college with his wife. I went to high school with the children, so a long lineage. Thomas Berry married us and was very inspiring. His memorial in New York had 1,000 people there. We're still working on translations with May and other people on his work. So he was brilliant and very compassionate and really understood the affection in Chinese tradition, unique. And Wingsit Chan, I mean, really, he was in his 90s when he died. He came every week on the plane to Columbia from Pittsburgh, and then a taxi from the airport, and was there all day long helping us. And he helped us find the passages in the Chinese texts for our dissertations and so on. Such devotion. He had no education, his family had no education, even from high school. So he was absolutely unique. And a special shout out, as we say, to Du Weiming, because Professor Du welcomed Westerners to the study of Confucianism, because he was very close to Ted DeBerry and Thomas Berry. They were all very, very close in their devotion to Confucianism. But even to accept a woman studying these traditions, I was so grateful. But he was brilliant in his understanding of the spiritual dimensions of Confucianism, not only the ethical or social. And so when he spoke here some years ago, 2019, in the Congress of World Philosophy, thousands of people came to hear him. And his latest thinking is about the humanistic, spiritual humanism. So I recommend his works and this institute to you all.
Yeah. So the mentors, I think you mentioned, is not like a teacher, like it's a kind of at a spiritual level who inspired you. And you also helped me to recall who inspired me, my mentors. Yeah, so I have tracked my starting point on climate is 2009, the Copenhagen conference. And I still remember after that, I also witnessed, a lot of ups and downs of the global climate governance. And it's in 2015, during the Paris conference, it's the COP 21. And President Xi Jinping announced a lot of money to support the South-South Climate Cooperation. At that moment, I thought, oh, how can help the Chinese government to really make good use of the money? So I invited Minister Xie Zhenghua to go to a village in Vietnam. And that village is just in a seaside. And at the very beginning, the people there, they are fishermen, right? But because of the climate change, the sea level rising, and they lost a lot of their livelihood. So they have to change their livelihood. Like, okay, I cannot fish in, then I can at least steal a bit seawater there. I can raise clam at least. But then the sea level raises again, and so they lose everything. And the people there really don't know what they can do. And some international organizations, the local community, and some companies, and also the governments of Vietnam, they come together to the village and to help the people, help them to rebuild their community and plant a lot of mangrove, and also attract the travelers around the world to visit that village and open some small cafe shop, and and a lot of local women also find their job because they can prepare the coffee for the guests. So the village recovered from the climate change, and it's a kind of adaptation. And after our visiting, Minister Xie asked a lot of questions, to the villagers, and they have a deep conversation. And finally, he said, "Oh, I realize addressing climate change is not only about mitigation; it's about adaptation, and it's also about environment protection. It's also about gender justice and poverty reduction. And there is a synergy to reach the sustainable development goal." And he said, I should push to write down all those points, to be added to the Paris Agreement. And at that moment, I really felt, wow, he helped to open my eyes. I never thought at that moment my focus is adaptation. And I said, yes, since I worked on adaptation is the most important topic. And I fell into my own silo. And it's Minister Xie helped me to step out from my silo. At that moment, I felt I find the key to open the door to the sustainable future. Yeah, so this is, I still remember the moment. It's really a aha moment, and still, support me to date. And another aha moment is about Christiana Figueres. She is the former Secretary General of UNFCCC. UNFCCC is the core organization of UN system to coordinate the global negotiation on climate every year, year by year. So Christiana Figueres, after the failure of Copenhagen, because at that moment all the nations didn't get the agreement, but she tried to. I think some nations even lost the trust on this topic and on each other. So Christiana worked with the other world leaders and also Minister Xie Zhenghua to invite the national leaders back to the table and produce out the Paris Agreement. And in 2019, I participated in a female leadership program and got a chance to visit the Antarctica. And the surprise is that Christiana Figueres was on the same ship. So she was our mentor for that trip. And she shared what she experienced. And she also mentioned at a personal level what kind of suffering she has. But although have this kind of difficulties, she still continue to push the global cooperation. And she has a new term, is stubborn optimist. at that moment, I never thought I can be such kind of people, always be, optimistic. I think it's so difficult because I think as a real human, we always our emotion, ups and downs, as same as the global climate governance. But she also showed us how to overcome the difficulties, how to make balance of the inner peace, and also helped me to make exercise. So I think she's also a role model, a real mentor for me. And then the last but not least point is in Yale. Last autumn, I was in Yale as the Yale World Fellow. It's a flagship program initiated by the former president of Yale. So he invited 16 people from 16 countries every year, gathered in Yale for 4 months. And thus we work very closely to understand each other's country, and also help the faculties and students in Yale to understand our countries. And in Yale, of course, I learned a lot, and from the communication, I also helped me to understand the real world and the world order. And finally, because at that moment, I really felt, wow, a lot of discussion about China, because China is rising. And the discussion is whether China is a good guy or bad guy, and what kind of attitude the Western country should treat China. And some friends recommended me to talk with Mary. And I found Mary, and we talked at least 3 times. And every time, Mary tried to show me how brilliant the traditional Chinese culture is. And she also helped me to find myself, because I was born in Shandong, and it's the home of Confucius. And also my mentor of my master degree is the 75 generation of grandson of Confucius. So I never link these points in my life together. And Mary helped me to link all these points out. And then she said, hey, this is your destiny. This is your destiny to set up the synergy between all the points, all the majors you experience. And there should be the pathway you can identify, you can develop and open it. And at the moment, I thought climate change is only the people in climate change, in the field we care about. And it's so difficult to call more people care about this topic, although it's our common crisis. So how to open the door and encourage other people to step out from each silos, to come together? Mary, is you. Give me the key. Thank you so much. I feel so grateful to meet you in Yale, and then I can invite you here to Peking University, to my campus. And thank you to show me this is my destiny.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It means, as you can see, on the personal level, this is how change happens. And when we share our stories, as Bin just did so beautifully, then we get a feeling of Christiana Figueres and the incredible work of people who are encouraging Bin on her journey. And that's why we're here today, in many ways, to be mutually encouraging, because we're facing very difficult problems, we're facing misunderstandings between our country, but this is a new dialogue, I think, that Bin has opened, because she knows the science and social science, we are from the humanities, and she is saying, as is China, that culture matters, values matter. And even at our School of the Environment, we have strong science and policy and technology and so on, but the values, in some ways, are not yet integrated. And that's what we have to do, both in China and the West, integrate the values. And we have students studying Tibetan values and conservation and so on, and Yunnan ethnic peoples and their conservation ways. So all of this is a new opening. And we're so pleased to be doing it with Binbin and Huang Qi and Due Ming Center. These are two centers that can help open the doors.
And especially during your speech, you highlight the eco-civilization. And China highlighted this term very much. And I try to find the synergy between climate change and eco-civilization. So I'm too humble to ask your advice how to understand it, the synergy between climate change and eco-civilization. You and John, please.
Well, listening to two friends talk, I'm reminded about the call in many traditions to recover a deep authenticity. And I think Chinese traditional culture had much to say about what that depth of culture, the depth of authenticity within all of us. And in Confucianism especially, friendship was given a special focus because we in our life do not see our own face. But when you look into the face of a friend, you see that authenticity. And I think we are trying to recover also a sense of authenticity with the earth. And that authenticity comes out of our depth of being a carbon-based life form. And we are trying to understand what is it that caused us to enter into this journey with fossil fuels and to find a way of elaborating a style of life that was very beneficial. It has enabled us to do remarkable things, but at the same time, it moved us away from our deeper authenticity. It gave us a drive towards accumulation or acquisition, and we lost some of that deep friendship with the earth. And I think that's where the traditions give us an understanding to return again, to look again, to see our friend, the earth, in deep reciprocity, that deep authenticity, and to recover the depth of our carbon life form, and to realize we have to diminish the heat-trapping gases in our atmosphere, which are our cousins. Our cousins, they are also carbon forms. And we need to have a deep empathy with what we have done to this planet and to begin to diminish our consumption and to move towards net zero emissions. And I think there are in the traditions teachings that open the way toward that possibility.
And I love what John is saying because the carbon base of life is something we can celebrate. We come from the stars, where carbon comes from too. So there's this big idea, the cosmic and earth idea that's in Confucianism and Taoism. But also this sense of empathy or sympathy with not only earth, but with other humans. And right now, all the traditions have this sense, like Ren, of sympathy human to human, and even with the whole earth. But we translate it humaneness in English. It's love, it's benevolence, it's compassion, and so on. But right now, if we think of heat in China, heat in Beijing, heat in Xinjiang, all over, if we think of heat in India, in Delhi, excruciating heat, even in the US, heat, north and south, and so on. What is the effect, not only on ecosystems, but on people? If we look at the pictures of people working outside, they can barely get water, they can barely think and feel. This is a crucial and critical moment for empathy, that this issue of climate change means it's not only China, not only India. These are the two really important countries on the horizon, along with the US and Europe. But we must open this gateway of empathy and sympathy, because that leads to what some of you are studying, climate justice, climate empathy, a sense we are privileged, we are teachers, we have this beautiful room and equipment and so on. but millions and billions of people around the world do not. So that's what the UN conferences are trying to elevate, but we need civil society, we need NGOs, we need academia to elevate the inequities, gender inequities, of course, ethnic inequities, but especially on this issue of climate justice. We could say much more, but all the traditions can contribute to this point, I think.
I think you mentioned climate justice is also a kind of balance, right? Balance between people, like rich people and poor people, right? And I have a good case in China about climate justice, because according to UN's term, it says that no one should be left like out of the camp. So in China, we have a city in Shanxi province, Datong. I hope one day you can visit there. I just visited Datong several weeks ago, and in my memory, Datong is a capital of coal. Yeah, a lot of coal under the earth. So the air are always dirty, and the people, I never can see their face, only 2 eyes out, because they work under the earth, and all the people there take masks. But this time, I haven't been there for several years, and this time I was there, it's still Datong. It changed a lot, because the leaders in that city saw that fossil fuel may say goodbye to the reality one day. So they changed ahead of time, and they develop as a tourist city, and they have a lot of historical buildings and the stories. They rebuilt them, and now this city have a new overview, and a lot of people come to Datong to visit the beautiful view there. So, and also renewable energy, the wind power around the city, it's changed a lot. And the people once worked for this kind of a dirty job, now they work for a green job. They play as a guide, a tour guide, or work in the shop. They open shop at their home to welcome the guests from around the world. So they also change their livelihood, according to this kind of a green transition. So I think this is climate justice. No one left behind. Yeah, they all develop themselves. Yeah, together with the city.
I think this is such a great example. And we were actually there in September.
Great.
And even earlier, I had visited with my sister many years ago. But here's an example also of how culture helped make the change, because of the famous Buddhist caves there were being damaged by coal. And so they realized these very ancient 2,000-year-old caves and Buddhist statues needed to be protected, of course. So culture helped make that shift. And as you said, new jobs. And in the US, Pittsburgh was also a city very polluted, and the water was polluted, and they've cleaned it up. So this renewal, restoration is very important. And I want to just add to what Binbin said so eloquently, is that there are now city partnerships of the US and China, especially California, many of them, but they are working on climate zero emissions, neutrality. They're learning from Chinese technologies, and they're exchanging many ideas, which is so exciting, very promising.
I'm so pleased to have a chance to talk about Datong, because I had never visited until we went in last September. And when we met with the faculty at Datong University, they asked me, "Do you know what Datong means?" And I said, "Well, tell me." And they said, "This is the ancient unity, the one unity, the sense of a great unity." And I was struck by it. There's such an old idea in Chinese consciousness that there is a oneness, and of course we hear a lot of it when we're in China now about the sense of unity. But I began to realize as we went from Datong to Taiyuan to Nanchang to Pu'er, when we were showing the film Journey of the Universe and speaking with students and faculty, it dawned on me that what we are talking about is a new Datong, a new unity or a great unity, this sense that all of us have come out of this universe. And while we are very different in terms of people and the way we go about life, we share that deep unity of the genetic relationship with the earth and the larger universe out of which we have come as a carbon-based life form. So indeed, Datong is a new idea for me.
I see. That's why you highlight Datong so many times. I see. So Datong in China is 天下大同. So new Datong city also show us a new Datong culture, right? And it's like shared future and it's eco-civilization. And as I realized from our discussion just now, like fossil fuel is a kind of achievement from the industrial civilization. And also it's from the industrial revolution. And the people find the fossil fuel, and then we have machine, and then we have plant, we have cars, and we want a bigger house, we want more money, and we want. And then we destroy the planet, destroy the nature. And now it's also from the case of Datong City, we can see that once we find the new direction, the green transition really can help us. Our earth, our nature, they have potential to protect us. But we should show our respect. We should rely on them, believe in the earth, in the universe. And then we can find the new pathway towards the new future.
Interesting, yeah.
I love that. And were you going to say?
No.
So it's so perfect because I want to just mention this notion that we were trying to establish a new field of study, a new academic field 25 years ago, and now there are about 25 programs, master's programs, 3 PhD programs in this area in North America, which is exciting. But of course, we don't want this just to be theory and academic, but we want to have it as a moral force for change. And clearly that is happening right now in the US. There are many demonstrations in front of banks that are lending money to carbon polluting industries and oil companies and so on. So people are gaining, and many of these are inspired by religious ideas of what is correct, of what is fair, of what is equitable, and so on. And there are also many of these groups are pressing our government to say we should call this a climate emergency. And on our website, we changed that quite a few years ago when the UK government voted to say we are in a climate emergency. And so is Ireland, etc. The EU is now being pressed to elevate this to a climate emergency, especially because of the suffering of people as well as ecosystems. So I just want to elevate the notion that this is an academic field and we can be in dialogue and academia, but it's also a moral force that has tremendous potential coming from all the world's religions and beyond the religions to say we need this change now.
Thank you for this strong message.
And it's also so appropriate to mention many of the Taoist associations in China have been very active in environmental concern. And that tradition of Taoism also has wonderful understanding of an inner landscape that corresponds to the outer landscape. So there are deep resources within these Chinese traditions for recovering attention to the earth, attention to the species. We're losing so much biodiversity, and attention to ways of changing our behavior so that we reduce carbon emissions, so that we benefit living forms on the earth, and come to realize that the earth community is the only way we can go into the future. If the children of all of the species are not allowed to go into the future, then our children will not be able to either.
And maybe just one other point to pick up on that, and because this is your specialty, I hope you'll comment, and because we have students working on this notion, one of the most promising signs, I think, in our time for this ecological culture, ecological civilization, is the recovery of traditional environmental knowledge from peoples all over the world. There's rights of nature, so that the river in New Zealand is protected now and so on. But traditional environmental knowledge, until recently, maybe even 6-7 years ago, was put on the edge, and only science and ecology were considered the way to help restoration and so on. But now, and especially in the course that John developed on indigenous traditions, he interviewed people from all over the world who are doing protection of mangroves, of fisheries, of forests, and so on. And this new unity, another unity of science and traditional environmental knowledge, is exploding. A book in the US of Robin Kimmerer called Braiding Sweetgrass has sold over 1 million copies, no advertising, because she is Potawatomi indigenous, she's a botanist, scientist, and she's at a forestry school. So this is a very exciting moment of breaking down the silos and new synergies that are happening.
One clear example of that is fighting forest fires. That we now consult with ethnic wisdom keepers about how they burned the understory of many forests. So fire regime is one very good example of traditional environmental knowledge, and it is being implemented in many parts of the world. Australia, Aboriginal peoples there are speaking out and working with forest rangers, and also in the US and Canada, and in the northern parts of Europe among Sami people. So the burning of understories of forests is a very interesting example.
In fact, at Yale, we had a seminar for the whole semester, last semester, where 4,000 people listened to these new methods.
And it's all online. It's available.
So it can be, and again, I want to say, there's students working with Tibetan values and Yunnan indigenous peoples values, and our student Gao Yufeng in the Tibetan area for conservation of animals and so on, from Buddhist traditions. So it's a very exciting time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this inspiring signal. And I also, you helped me to remind why I have this kind of interest on this interdisciplinary field. It's because, as I mentioned before, the problem is because of the Industrial Revolution. After that, people want too much. And now we have a chance to welcome the renewable energy around the world, and China is the #1 investing on renewable energy. But what I'm thinking is that when we talk about the fossil fuel, now the thing is that fossil fuel is dirty, is black. But when we found the fossil fuel at the very beginning, it's also from the earth. Right? It's also part of the plants, part of the animal. And now we see renewable energies from the nature, from the sun, from the wind. But if we see from this perspective, fossil fuel as well, so what's the problem? The key problem is not the force of fossil fuel, it's the mindset of human. If we continue the mindset of industrial revolution and industrial civilization, we want more, we want too much, then even we have the renewable energy, if we use a lot, we may also, one day we may have no access to them. Now we can see, we have a lot of sunrise, we have a lot of winter, we have a lot of water. But at that moment, we also have a lot of fossil fuel. We use it out. So how to only if we change the mindset, we can use a renewable energy, but at the same time, we can rethink how to feedback or how to benefit the nature. We take from the nature, how to benefit from the nature. And only in this way, it's a cycle. It's a balance, right? It's nature and human was one. And thus can towards not only the net zero future, but also the eco-civilization. And then when I share this kind of idea, some of my colleagues challenge me. Hey, do you mean that we should give up the renewable energy now? We should stop? I say no. And especially from your sharing just now, I have a case in China. It's a student from Shanghai, and he has a startup. He found in the river, under the river, there are a lot of mud, right? And it's dirty, it's black. So usually people will dig out the mud and throw it away. So this student conducted research on what kind of elements of the mud. And then he made the mud to produce bricks. It's the mud bricks. And these bricks, use the bricks to build a building. And this kind of building in winter is warm, in summer is cold. So I think it's really inspired me. And there is a thing that on this earth, there are no rubbish, just the resources put on the wrong place. Even the mud under the water, under the river, it has the new usage. So this is why I say we should change the mindset. We should realize once we really want to throw out something, we should stop, pause, and really think, whether I can really use it, how to reuse it, recycle it, right? And thus we can really cherish the resources of the earth. And also for the renewable energy, we use it like hydrogen. Green hydrogen is from use the sun power to analyze the H2O, the water, and pick out the element to produce the green hydrogen. So it's from the nature. Whether we can when we use the green hydrogen, how to benefit the nature. So then it's a cycle. If we can really, all the scientists and all the companies, private sector, when they produce or when they design their products, they have this kind of cycle, recycle thoughts. I think it's maybe the pathway towards the eco-civilization.
Definitely. I love that. So important, because it goes back to how we view nature that Sean's been talking about and how we use it wisely. Please.
And I find a dimension of the remarks that you're making and the observations is technology. That we humans, when we encountered our hand, we realized we had the capacity for technology. And I think it's so old in the human to have that sense of assisting one another in the community. But in some instance, technology has become an end in itself. And I think our discussions now about AI are an interesting example where it makes us quite anxious. Will it assist us or will it harm us? Does it turn against us in its own way? It's interesting to reflect on our teacher, Thomas Berry, who would say, there is no way we can move away from our negative effect upon the earth without the technologies that made the problem. So he was not anti-technology, but he wanted to revisit technology, I believe in the way that you're describing, to step back and to ask the question, is this technology assisting the world? So when he was very young, he had an experience of a meadow with lilies in it. And it struck him at that time that a really good medicine would assist that meadow. A really good economics would help that meadow grow. And that stayed with him his whole life. That technology that assists the flourishing of the earth community is technology that we can go forward with. So maybe AI also has real potential for assisting the earth community. I would like to think so.
I totally agree. And once the more people change their mindset, like towards from ego to eco, and then because it's human who like create AI, and AI is like a machine learning, and it's up to what humans mindset, and then AI may just it's from the human's mind. So this is the point I agree. Once the human change our mindset, AI will also develop towards a friendly way, because there are also a lot of concern on AI. But I think the source, the core, is our human, because it's human who produce AI. Yeah. So and also, I also want to echo the point you mentioned, people to people. And nowadays we have AI, and we have a lot of problems. And also in China, we have a term 卷, 内卷. 卷 means we ask ourselves to do more, and everyone, because we are developing country, and the country developed very quickly, so a lot of people feel pressure. So how to deal with this kind of pressure? Just now you mentioned friends, you mentioned connection. I really think this kind of people to people deep connection is so beneficial, to all of us. Can solve every problems, I think.
So often we have heard for so long, it's a competitive world. We're fighting all the time. But the universe is also talking extensively about cooperation. There is this mutual participation by so many realities in one, and our very bodies. We are a total cooperative universe within our bodies. So I think while competition opens us to the possibility of being aware and understanding what can come from the outside can be harmful, but also we need to extend cooperative learning as a viable way forward.
And also, I find there is a very interesting phenomenon. For example, when I see, just now you also mentioned the behavior change, because I conduct research to test people's awareness. And I found that a lot of Chinese people, they heard of climate change. But if we ask whether you would like to take action, they say, So I feel, what can I do? And then I feel so confused. And this is also why I participate in the Homeward Bound project to Antarctica, because there are more than 90 female scientists from 30 countries. We gather together. We all care about climate. So I share my concern, my confusions with the other female scientists. And they said, hey, it's not only happening in China, in my country as well. So it's a global problem, how to mobilize people to take real action to address climate change, and also to change mindset, and then change mindset, and to think of the eco-civilization. So for the behavior, I really think there is a principle I want to share with all the participants, is count me in. Because we used to say, hey, yes, it's so important, it's so valuable, you should do that. And we forget that we are a member of the community, and we are also the children of the earth. And a lot of parents came to me and said, hey, could you please share some very important or very beautiful, influential program for kids, that my kids can join it. So my suggestion to the parents is that, hey, why not encourage your kids to initiate his or her own project? Maybe it's small, but in China, we have one generation, as I observed, one generation can influence at least 5 generations. Because you use one child with their parents, with their grandparents, and then he or she will have her own child and grandchildren, right? So one children here in China can influence 5 generations. If at least he or she can influence the people around him or her. And thus, one change and the other change is kind of also use the people-to-people connection to change the behavior. So this is also what I want to share. Count me in, but not just say, yeah, okay, I watch and I wait and see. It's just count me in, and we all can do what we can do to contribute to the common future.
And it's wonderful to think about where does our influence reach? My father was born in 1898. He knew people who fought in the Civil War in the 1860s, and they knew people who had stretched back maybe 200 years between every human. We stretch back 200, and we will influence people, our students, with their children going forward, who will influence maybe 200 years. So this sense of what we do, feeling it's very limited, we need to rethink that. Our influence is quite old and reaches forward into a future.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to hearing questions soon, but maybe just I wanted to say quickly, I think we are at a moment when there's a lot of climate despair, eco-anxiety, hopelessness. I think this is true in China and in the West. Very much in the US, our students are suffering from great anxiety. So what's just been said is how can we all make a difference? We like to say we're giving an intergenerational handshake to the next generation, to our students and their children and so on. But I think especially in China, as Binbin has shown, 95% of the people in China know climate change is a huge issue. There's no Western country that comes close to that. So that's huge potential here for awareness that still needs to grow in Europe even, and definitely in the US. But I think this comes back to human energy. If we can tap into the human energy for change, the creativity of the human for participating, for contributing, that's what the human wants to do. It doesn't want to just withdraw, sit by itself, be isolated. And that sense then of human energy and creativity is the missing link for participation. And if you take the example of Jane Goodall, probably the most famous scientist on the planet, if she was here, she'd be hooting like the chimps. And she has started, as you know, Roots and Shoots for children. So she's done something very similar. And I think we can do this for climate change because that creativity is very much there. Because ultimately, the shoots of hope and possibility and creativity is what we really need for this change that we're in.
Not only for climate change, and because only if we reach the carbon neutrality, we can reach the eco-civilization. Yeah. Okay, I know you are so eager to communicate with the participants offline. So now we have to say goodbye to the online participants. And thank you so much. And also thank you so much for your participants online. Yeah, I observed that more than thousands of people around the country join this event. So thank you so much. And I believe we will have more chance to communicate, to have this kind of dialogue with the great thinkers like Mary and John. Thank you.
Thank you, Binbin. Thank you.
停掉了吗？直播 ？OK， 好了。So now the floor is open. If you have questions or what you want to share, anything, please. Don't be shy. No questions? Hey.
Thank you so much. So listen to and still sorting out their thoughts. You started at the very beginning with the message of friendship and peace, which of course comes at a time where there's a lot of war going on in the world right now. And I feel in relation to climate change, there's also a way sometimes in which the response to climate change is quite militarized. In Europe, where I'm from, I think a lot of the climate policy is sort of centered around the fortification of waters and the vilification of people who are often fleeing from climate change. But I think even sort of these pictures of these planes flying into the sky and trying to manipulate the clouds such that it's raining and so on. So I'm wondering if among the resources and people that you've spoken about, there's any way to think about this tendency to violence, militarization, and what to do about it, right?
Thomas Berry had a phrase which comes to my mind as I listen to your question, Elliot. The phrase he would say is, we have trouble among the humans because we have trouble with the earth. We can have peace among peoples if we are able to generate peace with the earth. And I think his insight has something to do with our time, because we humans have always been at each other, and we have had difficulties, and violence is sometimes proposed as foundational to the human. But I think strikes me as like the competitive, or the reading of Darwin's evolution as read in tooth and claw. It's all competition, or it's all the way down. It's this fight for existence. But something new emerges in our time, a kind of understanding of co-evolutionary growth, that predation also has produced new eyes to see, or faster speed to run. And so predation is not simply the devouring of another for food, but rather there has been some push in this evolutionary drive. And by this I'm not trying to justify violence, but I am trying to say that we begin to understand our drives, that there is something deeply generative about what drives the human, but we need to be critical of it, and we need to be able to think of it in new ways. And one of the new ways, I think, is to recognize we have deep problems with the earth, and we need to restore our relationship with the earth community as we restore relations with one another.
Yeah, I think this is very important, what you're speaking about. And there's a way we can look at it through John's eyes, and we can say, ironically, after World War I, at Columbia, my university, they developed a whole class in the classics of Western civilization as a way of returning to peace and civil society and so on. So that was a very famous, it still is, a very famous class at Columbia. And after World War II, my professor DeBerry created a parallel set of courses for Asian civilization and culture, because he was trained in the Army and Navy language school. And many of the professors in the US came back from the Pacific War and created Asian studies, because before that there was almost nothing in the universities. After Vietnam, world history began to grow, because one of the officers came back to the University of Hawaii and said, we don't even understand Vietnam. We have to move into world history. And I participated in the teaching of world history as well. Now there's an even further movement it's called Big History, which includes evolution, Earth, and human. It's quite amazing that in a fairly short period of time, 100 years, because of, I'm sorry to say, but because of destruction and so on, new creativity has emerged so that we are beginning to understand very complex civilizations and so on. It doesn't justify the terror and horror that we're living with, but it gives us maybe another angle. And what I'm hearing, and first of all, I don't want to get too political here, but these events in the Middle East are heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. And so we have to find a solution towards peace and stability and reconstruction and so on. And the same in Russia and the Ukraine, because people are suffering. It's the same with climate change, as I said. The suffering of the human, it leaves me sleepless. It really does. So militarism isn't the answer. Big military budgets like the US, it's not the answer. And I hope we can shift that. It's going to take a long, long time. But I also heard maybe you were saying about geoengineering. And I think geoengineering overall can be a problem because we don't know the consequences, the unintended consequences of geoengineering. So I have some worry about that as a solution. Other questions or comments? Yeah. Right here.
Okay, got it. Jack Liu, really appreciate Mary, John, and Bin Bin. You give us a wonderful the speech and also provide a different perspective about the civilization and the ecology. So my question is about the ecological civilization. So when we talk about the civilization, it's kind of the result of man-made, the civilization. But right now, you guys put the ecological and the civilization together. So probably when you guys are talking about this topic, in my mind, I'm thinking about the ecology and the civilization. So I'm thinking, maybe I'm wrong, you can correct me. Can we divide ecology to two parts? One is societal ecology, is talking about the man-made civilization and the society. And another one is natural ecology. I think they are different. So what do you think about? Oh, the first one is the societal ecology. The second one is the natural ecology. Societal is 社会的. Yeah. Or maybe a social ecology or natural ecology. Can you divide them, the two tracks?
Your comment makes me think about the term ecology as a science. Right. It emerged in the 19th century, especially the German thinker Hegel was the first to use the term. And it exploded into the science community as a potential holistic idea that the systems were working as a whole and that we could study them. But as ecology moved into the 20th century, the science community itself became very critical of ecology, saying, where is the holism? I can't see it, I can't measure it. And they were pursuing the idea of quantification as the only way to validate a scientific understanding such as ecology presented itself. So ecology gradually developed food pyramids, energy flows. It developed ways of quantifying or measuring how energy flows from the sun into the earth. And today, all of our students at the School of the Environment at Yale are very committed to the quantifying idea of ecology. So ecology itself has had some scientists who have returned to the idea of the whole. And I think that's influenced us a great deal. The Odom brothers and others around in the science of ecology who have begun to reconsider this sense of a whole perspective, that we can't simply separate it into parts or something that flows through it, but rather it's an interactive. Similarly, the word civilization and its emphasis upon civitas, or cities, civility, the whole idea of urbanization is embedded in the concept of civilization. And I think this is where China has so much to offer to the rest of the world community, because the endurance of civilization here is also rooted in very deep agricultural ideas. Food, how food is grown, who grows it, who works, how is it distributed. These are questions today that interest our students a great deal. So if we put together ecology and its holistic understanding with this attention to both quality and quantification, and civilization with an idea to both the sense of urbanization and the deep relationship of the urban to the rural agricultural, we come up with some new ideas about how we go forward with the ecological civilization. And underneath it all, I think, is one final term, evolution itself, a deep time understanding of ecological civilization. And I think that's what we have tried to bring with the journey of the universe perspective, that ecological civilization is the turning to the Earth community, and the Earth community in relationship to its origin in the cosmos. So this is a totally new perspective on ecological civilization, as I see it.
I want to clarify your question, though, and just make one footnote to what John has said, because our School of the Environment, while very science and policy-based, also has social sciences, and we have students here who are studying the culture, as I've mentioned, the traditional environmental knowledge, but in a lot of the literature that I see that's being produced in China, there are terms like biosocial cultural. It's coming together. Biosocial cultural beings. So these are not separate, social ecology or natural ecology. But I wanted to hear, I wasn't quite sure of your question and where you were going with your question.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. John gave me the very clear historical perspective from the whole perspective, kinds of the philosophy, the whole philosophy, and then you guys talk about the science question that. But right now it's the whole holistic the perspective. I have this question because when the people think that there are the two community. So one is the man-made, so another is science. Maybe another one is the nature. They think there are differences. This question confused me for a long time. So should we divide them to two tracks? I think based on you guys, you want to integrate them together. You think about the Earth, so Earth including human, and also including the plant or other things. Okay.
That's exactly right, and that's why we keep emphasizing again, very general, but the Western worldview is much more anthropocentric, social-oriented, whereas in China it's anthropocosmic, and that's a new integration, right? But I think even in the West, we know we can't only study the environment from natural sciences. We need the social sciences. So now we have a new center at our school on climate justice, finally. But this integration of social and natural has taken a long time, frankly, in academia. But it's absolutely essential for the future.
Your question reminds me also that your emphasis on human and on nature as a separate reality, separate terms, is much challenged in the academy today, that the word nature is a distancing term and that humans are totally embedded in nature, so that to distance like that. But your question reminds me, we need a new dictionary. We need new words to talk about this interrelational reality, because the old words, human nature, separate us. So please, can you invent a new term for us?
I'm trying my best.
I can give you another example. Like have you heard about nature-based solution? So it's a term created by IUCN, International Organization on Nature Conservation. So it's 10 years ago they created this term to help call on people to protect nature. And then in 2019, UN picked up this term. And at that moment, I was in New York participating in the UN Climate Summit. So it's a climate summit. And the UN picked up this word and said, hey, we invite China and New Zealand to take the lead on nature-based solution. So what's that? We just get off from the flight and we get this invitation from UN. So what's the term? How to understand it? What's the background? We have no idea. So when I came back, I feel at least it's about nature. I get the calling from nature in Antarctica, so I think I want to do from social science to do some research. But all my colleagues at that moment are from nature science, and they said, hey, do you have some methodology? I said, I don't think so. Okay, then we don't need to spend any time on it because it's not mature. I said, what? Because it's not mature, but it's a global discussion. This is why we should join it. Otherwise, how can we contribute to China's wisdom? And they say, hey, you don't need to spend any money or time on this topic because it's still as an egg. And we should do, because all the nature science are from the Western world, and we have very solid methodology, model, data, and only we have all those things, we can conduct our research. I said, okay, I conduct my own research, okay? So I found money and invite more than 400 organizations around the world. Once I know they see, if they say they are working on nature-based solution, I say, okay, join me. So it's a kind of network. It's a social science methodology. We set up the network, connect with the people. We organize a monthly workshop to share what they are doing and help us to understand, the current picture. Because as social scientists, we know literature review is very important. But for this kind of emergent new topic, how to do literature review? Because it's so new, so no literature in the library. So this kind of methodology, I name it as a live literature review. Because it's what is happening now around the world. And from this kind of network monthly workshop, we can know what they are doing. And then we can understand, where is the gap? What we should do. And very funny that finally I found, yes, it's a new term, simile, but actually it's a new bottle for old one. Because the content is still about nature conservation, created by IUCN several years ago. UN just used the term. So I think, it's UN, right, who chose this term. But if it's only around the globe, is the current dialogue discussion, it's all talk about this old content. Where is the contribution? So I called my sister in UN. She invited China at that moment on the table, invite China and New Zealand to shake hands and lead this track. So I called her and she said, hey, for UN, what we care about is not about the term, it's about nature. And we think it's a time to use this term to set up the bridge between nature conservation and climate change, between biodiversity and climate change. We need this kind of synergy. So we choose this term because it's there. And it's your responsibility to develop this term. You know climate change, and you can cooperate with the expert from biodiversity and to develop it, make good use of it, but not just repeat. So I think this is the strength of social scientists. At the very beginning, when this term is still new, no matured methodology, data, model, and it's our time to do the research, to make it burn and develop, and then welcome more nature scientists to join us to conduct the solid research. So this is my case I want to share with you, and it's really because no matter carbon neutrality or eco-civilization, it's a complicated topic. Not only the nature scientists, they can solve it. No. Even we use all the technology we have at hand, we cannot reach net zero. We cannot reach eco-civilization because it's about culture, it's about mindset. It's a social scientist we can contribute.
Wonderful. Yes, good.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, professors. Nice to see you again. Today I have two short questions. Just now we mentioned the interdisciplinary research, like different disciplines. I'm very interested in interdisciplinary research, and I wonder how you see the development of interdisciplinary research in environmental governance. Like what kind of topics do you think is in need of interdisciplinary research right now? And the second one, I feel it's an unfair, probably a naive question, but I'm always very curious about this because I study a lot about biodiversity conservation and climate change. I mainly study law and economics. But I feel currently the atmosphere is still quite anthropocentric. So I wonder how long does it take to change the mindset to achieve ecological transition. I kept asking myself this question, but I feel it's hard to give an answer. But I'm really curious. Yeah, thank you.
I feel I was trying to say something in advance of your question to the second question, the second remark. When I indicated my father's birth year and then he knew people that stretch back another 100 years, it's like each one of us, we stretch back into the past and these influences have come to us and we influence those who go into the future. So my feeling about ecological civilization is a process kind of feeling. It's not something I will see in my lifetime. I will see dimensions of it. I already see them. The students are educating me about ecological civilization, but I know it will be their children who will put in place dimensions of this view of the world that we hope so deeply for. So for me, it's a long-term change, and that long-term change is part of my interest in cosmology and ecology. The connection of thinking about how I am situated in an immense universe, which is both very old and right now. And so ecological civilization is something that it calls us into the future, but it's also beginning to show itself right now.
So, thank you, John, and thank you for your wonderful comments on nature-based solutions. Very important. So I heard two parts to your question. One was interdisciplinary and then the anthropocentric issue. So I agree, and I agree with John's point of long term. Interdisciplinary is one of the hardest things for academia. I mean, I have a degree in literature, I have a degree in history, I have a degree in Chinese studies and so on. All of that is interdisciplinary. And to teach world history, for example, that I did for several years, you have to be interdisciplinary. So in giving the examples of not only studying Western civilization, but Asian civilization, and then world history, and big history. There's a big history conference just in a few weeks, and I will speak by Zoom to the conference. And that includes people from China who are part of the conference. So we have to make this visible, that interdisciplinary fields are growing, in fact, exploding, and that the fossil of the silos and what we call disciplinolatry, it becomes like an ideology, is very much fading. Why? Because your generation is already nimble and flexible with many different disciplines or perspectives. Our school is maybe at least a third international, maybe more students international. Many of them come from mixed nationalities. Our world is very much mixed nationalities and people and so on. It's just astonishing. Let me give a personal example. When I lived in Japan in 1973-74, I taught at a university there. I only spoke home once in almost 2 years when my brother got married. A phone call was very expensive. Even before that, I lived in England for a year at Oxford, 68, 69. One phone call at Christmas time. We are in such a different world. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I'm finally on WeChat. I'm enjoying the international. But anyway, so the interdisciplinary is changing. And your generation will change it easily. These students, as I've said several times, are already doing that. The other thing about anthropocentrism, I couldn't agree more. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. And frankly, again, the Western traditions have a much more anthropocentric viewpoint. And we've got to shift from individual rights to responsibilities, individual liberty to community giving. That's where we are, and that's why we need Chinese civilization and Western ideas as a new synthesis, a new integration. Because individualism has its role, but not exclusively. It's a lonely role. It's an isolating role. We need community. We need creativity that's much more synergistic. So anyway, your points are really excellent, and thank you for the question.
Yes. And also, I want to add one point. The nature science is our modern science. And the traditional wisdom, most of them are social science, right? They are about culture, about value. No matter what kind of civilization in the ancient time, they are not good at data. They are not good at model. They are good at philosophy. Yeah, so this is, yes, and this is where the religions come from. Yeah, so now I think it's timing for us to, I think we have Mary, we have John, and a lot of like Professor Du Weiming, help us to rethink, not only the importance of nature science, but reflect the value, the core value of the traditional wisdom is a social science, humanities. So that's so important. And I just want to add one point. It will be very challenged to explore interdisciplinary paths. But it's very, if you don't want to repeat other people's life, if you want to be yourself, I encourage you to go ahead. And no need to hear about the judgment around you, because most of these kind of voices, they want to stop you because you are different. But be different, you will feel you are valuable. And be different is your own life. And it's the life you can develop yourself and also contribute new ideas, creative ideas to the world.
That's so great. And I want to just pick up, because you mentioned Du Weiming, our common teacher, and this Institute for Advanced Studies of Humanities. And part of his invitation from the Chinese government and Beida was to come back and emphasize just what you're saying, the humanities. not just STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, but I want to just say the example of Dui Ming for his creativity, his openness in interdisciplinary, and more than he created the idea of anthropocosmic, really, and many of the ideas in the talk are from his writings. I should say that more often. But I want to especially say, for example, this field of religion and ecology, when we first started it at Harvard, many people were like, what is this? This is such strange. Is it interdisciplinary? Very strange. And he came forward. We were living at the Center for Study of World Religions. His home was just down the block, 5 minutes away. Every conference, he opened his home for the conference participants coming from all over the world. He participated in the discussions. The Taoist conference with him and a leading Taoist scholar was unbelievable. So his openness, his flexibility, his intelligence, his humanity helped make this possible. And just one other example, it's amazing to me when I think about it. So for 3 years, he had conferences at Hawaii, at the center, East-West Center in Hawaii, very famous center. What did he call us to think about? The peoples of the Pacific and the indigenous knowledge of the Pacific people and their spiritual contributions. So January and June 90 to 93, 6 conferences inviting people from all over the Pacific. This was amazing for a Confucian scholar, transforming. So I just want to say, this is the challenge, right? As Bin said, to be creative, not to be afraid. But I really want to use the example of Dui Ming and his creativity and humanity. It's absolutely remarkable.
Because recently, when I was doing my thesis defense, I tried to use the interdisciplinary method, and I tried to propose this ecocentric transition, but I got a lot of negation. They say, oh, what are you talking about? This is all the things about development. If you say this, how should we develop? Like, a lot of people just thought, oh, economic development should be the priority. So even if we talk about environmental protection, still serves the economic perspective. So now I feel like I face a lot of negation of this view. So I wonder whether while you're developing your ideas, you also face this kind of a negation or suspicion. Yeah. How you handle that?
Yes.
I can share my experience. I'm the first PhD on climate communication, but my final paper, like my university at that moment refused to give me the PhD degree because all the professors participate my, how to say that, 答辩会, debate.
Defense.
Yes, you're right. So they said, oh, you are not talking about media. You are not talking about like what kind of words we should use. You talk about like cooperation between government, media, NGO, and the private sector. What's that? We cannot understand you. I see, as I understand, the communication is a part of the strategy of governance. And the communication, only if we can communicate fluently, we can push the mission together. And the media is just one approach. And nowadays, we can see media is not enough, right? So I have no interest to just work on media report what happened before. My interest is look forward to the future. So they said, okay, you just go. You can get your PhD, but you are not welcome by us. So then, okay, I think at least at that moment, then Trump was there. And I think what I can do now is Trump time. Even China government may give up climate change because at that moment, U.S. still lead the mission. I think I need a table to write down my paper out as a book because I want to really help other people to know we have this kind of cooperation in China already. we don't need to reopen the door. So I called the Peking University, my supervisor here, Professor Zhang Haibing in Institute of International Studies. And I said, I want to have a table here. You can accept me as a postdoc or like whatever. I just need a table. He said, okay, come here as my postdoc research fellow. And then the deputy dean of Institute of a School of International Study organized all the postdocs together. Hey, introduce your topic, and let's discuss how I can help you. And I introduced mine, China's transition on climate change, communication and governance from 2009 to 2015, Copenhagen to Paris. And he said, hey, are you sure you graduated from School of Journalism? You should graduate from our school. At that moment, I forgave my professors who refused to give my PhD because I realized, oh, it's really interdisciplinary like direction I'm like working on. And then I said, oh, it's interesting. But a lot of like professors in School of Journalism and Communication, once they found, oh, climate change is emergent, it's a hot topic, they try to also catch this opportunity, saying, oh, there is a term, climate change communication. Okay, let's do it. Let's do some work on media. How to like, what they are talking about, Western media, Chinese media, what's the difference? And then they come to me, hey, let's set up an alliance. I say, sorry, it's not my interest. They say, hey, you are the first like PhD on climate communication in China. You should take the lead. I said, I have no interest to take this kind of lead. My interest is about the future. And then they, okay, you are not our alliance. See, always this kind of reviews. But I just go on, and then I open new doors, I make new friends, and I have new alliance. There's a different world, there's a bigger world. So just to continue. So another hand, the final hand, maybe, yes, please.
Oh, good.
Takes a moment for it.
Yes, thank you so much for your lecture, and so nice to see you here. And maybe one last question is, I noticed how you started this talk with your own intellectual journey, like your own intellectual genealogy, and always return to your teachers from like the influence of white-haired Juicy to Native American who like invited you as a part of the Sundance rituals. And I noticed a tension between this very deep time perspective and the climate, the discourse around climate crisis, which is always very urgent and future-oriented. And I wonder how in both your academic and public-facing discussions, how do you deal with the temporal tensions between the need for deep time perspective and the sense of urgency and crisis? And also, that reminds me, how do you see this deep time perspective as a part of the traditional ecological knowledge or indigenous perspective?
Okay. So as I heard the question, it's how do we deal with our interest in deep time perspective and so on, and with the urgency of the environmental problems? That's the essence of your question?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay. So shall I respond first? So it's an excellent question. And I think you can see we're navigating like a ship going down water with rapids in this particular notion. What is it to be part of a vast, evolving universe, deep time journey, and problems that are facing us right now in the river? And this is very similar to our new and creative work with Binbin. What is it to talk about values and the science and communication of climate change? You know, this is part of the interdisciplinary work that we're trying to navigate. So there's no map, there's no perspective that says this. But I think, in part, the deep time perspective gives us a sense of grounding in something much larger than ourselves. So it gives us a perspective to say the urgency of the problems are real, they're going to be always changing, but it gives us the energy to face those problems without despair or sadness, but with creativity, because deep time is all about the creativity of the universe that has endured with chaos and confusion. So it gives all humans the sense of possibility, of belonging to something larger, and then entering into these processes with their creativity and their ideas. So, but much more needs to be said, because this is a really important question. And Bin, too, please.
It's interesting to ask the question to ourselves, what is deep time? How do we experience deep time? When you asked your question, and Mary Evelyn confirmed my hearing that I had heard correctly, I thought about the ceremonial that I mentioned earlier that in English we call Sundance, and the Crow people say, Ashkise Liswa. Liswa means dancing, and Ashkise is they build a lodge. It's about almost the size of this room, and they call it Ashkise, cosmic lodge, big lodge. And they go into it to dance. So I want to just draw attention to Liswa, dancing. I have this idea, of course, that dancing is a kind of performance, but Crow people, when they talk about Liswa, the first thing they want to talk about is feet. No shoes are worn by those who go in. Men and women who go in to participate in this ceremonial, they take off their shoes and socks. Their feet are on the ground. That's a very important experience that the Crow elders want to transmit in this ceremonial. That the experience that you are going into in the in the cosmos is grounded in your experience of the ground, of the feeling. So this sense of deep time is in the ceremonial. Well, how do you give a person an experience of deep time? For the Crow, there are many ceremonials on the northern plains that are called Sundance, but among the Crow people, they go for 3, 4, or 5 days without food or water. So after the first day, you get thirsty and maybe a little hungry. After the second day, you're just thinking about water. On the third day, you're not thinking about water or food so much as water. And by the 4th or 5th day, you're in deep time. The Crow experience of deep time. And they say it's a diagashe. It's a difficult word to translate. Diagashe means you did it. So they say your feet on the ground and going without things that we consider absolute necessary for life bring you into experience of what you can do in deep time. And it's a strange kind of answer I'm giving, I guess, but it's a very old teaching among ethnic peoples that the sense of sensory deprivation or diminishing all of our needs, diminishing our wants, opens up a new possibility of seeing things in a deep way, into deep time. And yet there is no possibility of being in deep time without your feet on the ground, this immediacy of the earth talking to a person.
Also, they're married. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Mary and John. So my question is also about grounded practice, about its relation with abstract ethics. So you mentioned traditional ecological knowledge is constituted by knowledge, practice, and belief. And practice may be the most important, as knowledge and belief will change with practice. And Professor John, you also mentioned like the Chinese tradition, like 天人合一 and other principles. They are grounded in the long agriculture practice. And so my question is like, in the modern time, our practice has changed. Like the people sitting here, we don't make a life through agriculture. We write and we read, and also like intergenerational knowledge exchange is important. But many like young people don't want to have kids because there are so much pressure, and also we do have like traditional traditions like Confucianism, Taoism, but many young people they don't attach to one religion or one tradition. They try to gain knowledge from like each one of them. So. Yeah, like for this young generation, based on the practice they are doing today, and like what kind of ethics do you think they or we will develop, and how it will relate to the different traditions?
Did you say young people are or are not interested in traditional?
I'm saying like they are not. Strictly attached to one tradition.
Right. Good. So, I think this is really important. Number one, I would say there's new synthesis, there's new syncretism. You know, I study Buddhism. I practiced Buddhism for many years. I studied Taoism. I studied Confucianism. So I'm a mixture. Of course, I have Christian background, etc., and social justice background. So we are new integrations of now world traditions, you see. We're not just one thing. So that's number one. We are influenced by many, many things. Our studies, John's studies with indigenous people deeply influence us. But I also think, and so I'm glad for your question, if I understood it all, I think there's new spirituality, ethics emerging even beyond the traditions of the world's religions. Many people are interested in what we would call ecological spirituality, you see, that's not connected necessarily to a religion, but it is exploding. We're doing a new section on our website just to illustrate this natural spirituality, ecological spirituality. There are journals, there are magazines, there are interviews, there are books on this now, you see, because people are so eager to connect. Even walking through a park, it doesn't mean you have to go into a wild space. You know, John has done beautiful garden in flowers and vegetables, but even in a small space, even in a city, you can connect and feel something living. That's really important. So I think the human is exploding out of the confinement of anthropocentrism, self as the whole limit, and it's very exciting. It's amazing to us. I could give you all kinds of examples that will go up on this website, but our list is huge, and that's a new way of connecting to nature.
It's very encouraging to encounter an indigenous elder, an ethnic elder who's a wisdom keeper and who moves in our contemporary world with some facility or ease. One person like that is Robin Kimmerer, the Potawatomi woman that Mary Evelyn mentioned. And she draws on her tradition, namely, many indigenous language are verbals. rather than noun-oriented, they are a language of occurrence and happening. Our participial form, laughing or crying, or the ing is more descriptive of a verbal form than laugh, the noun form. So she talks in her work about a very old insight of her people, namely that the world is speaking to us. And in the colonial encounter, that understanding was called animism, and it was seen as kind of superstitious, childlike, and didn't have anything to do with what we call science or knowledge. But she revisits that, and she talks about a grammar of animacy. Notice she takes the word animism and she shifts it. Animacy. A grammar of animacy. She's talking about the way the world speaks to us. You have to understand the way it is put together. It's grammar. And so she's teasing, I think, she's teasing all of us in these civilizations to realize that it's not just a matter of going out and looking or listening, it's a matter of attending and understanding the grammar with which the world speaks to us. And as a botanist, I think she realizes science is part of that grammar of animacy. They understand it. But also her tradition, and I think also Chinese tradition, has heart-mind, a deep felt, a feeling for that grammar of animacy. So that's part of what I feel your question is evoking in me, these wisdom keepers who are talking about very old teachings, but they're searching out new ways of talking about them, new ways of finding a pathway into these old teachings.
Yeah, I can add one point. Actually, you mentioned whether, like the young people, they don't want to be attached to one religion. I think no matter religion and country, family, and like gender, those are some labels on our hand. Like it's when we were born, when we were new on this planet, we have no awareness on this kind of things. At that moment, we are free. And then we began to put a lot of labor here. Hey, I'm from China. Hey, you're from US. Hey, I'm a man. Hey, you are women. Then judgment rise. And because of this kind of judgment, there are agree, disagree, and debate, and sometimes crisis and wars. So before I met Mary, I almost believe in Buddhism because a lot of signal, try to guide me. Hey, Buddhism, you should belong to this religion. But when I talked to Mary, you still remember that moment? She put out, hey, I want to share you my book. Then put a lot of books and on the table, Buddhism and ecology, Christian ecology, different kind of religions with ecology. And she said, yeah, you have religion. But Mary has believed in one religion, but actually she's so open, her heart is open to all religions. And thus, she can conduct research on religion and ecology. So religion is not a limitation. It's not a label here, right? It's just her self-choice. But it's not like a limitation. And also she told me before the last COP in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, right? Before COP28, the climate change big conference, UN conference, there is religions leaders, 6 or 5 global religious leaders, they gather together also in Abu Dhabi. They talk about how to protect the earth. And finally, they get agreement. They said, yes, we should protect the earth together, protect the nature. See, I think religion is a kind of ancient philosophy for people to think about this earth, the universe. And now they realize, wow, it's a timing we come together. And then we can look at the conflicts between like Israel and Palestine. It's also about religion. If we have the religion and like see the religion as a judgment, it will limit us. But if we we get the freedom from this kind of judgment, we understand it as a kind of philosophy, help us to understand the universe. Then all the religions can benefit us, can cultivate us. They can feed us. They are kind of culture, right? We can just pick out the points which can really inspire us, and then move on and develop our own pathway. Maybe create a new pathway to be open to more young generation, because you know more than me about your generation. So I don't think religion is a problem. Yeah.
I think that's great. And I wanted just to mention that in Hong Kong right now, our friend Chen Xia is there at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and there's a big conference for 2 days, all Chinese, but discussing exactly this topic of world religions and ecology. So it's developing all over the world, and I would just echo what Bin said. It's trying to liberate these teachings. But it's also, as John said, it's a sense that the earth is speaking. There's books now called The Hidden Life of Trees, How Forests Think. You see, this is the new spiritual ecology that I'm referring to. So, yes, the United Nations Environment Program, and for many, many years the United Nations wanted to keep religion over here, outside, but he's a Jordanian civil servant at the UN for many, many years, and several years ago he started United Nations Environment Program Faith for Earth. And he was one of the organizers in Abu Dhabi. He speaks widely, and we work closely with him on these issues. So it's international, it's national, it's academic, all the way down to grassroots.
Yeah. Once you have this kind of interdisciplinary perspective, you will have a bigger heart. So you will, it's not a kind of elegant. You will have more compassion. Yeah, and you understand the other people's, why they have this kind of judgment, why they have this kind of limitation. And then it will help you to understand, and then just go ahead and try to find a synergetic way, to how to say that, put people together, hug people.
Exactly. And as you know, we like to say religions have their problems and their promise.
Yes.
So we can't deny historically or at present religions have had conflict, etc. But they've also inspired people over time.
Yeah. We have different kind of pathway to develop our life. Religion is one of them, but all pathways have their limitations. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, yes, we have books here. Just now I noticed my colleagues is helping to deliver the books. Actually, we have the book from Thomas Berry. It's our Great Mission. And we also have the book, this is the Earth Village. And also the book from Christiana Figueres is The Future We Choose. It's the first book about carbon neutrality. I know some of you may have interest on religion and ecology, but I really encourage you to step out from silo and try to understand our common future. And this book is my book with my teammates from Antarctica. So there are 28 stories about females' life how to be yourself. So all the books now you can take back. It's a gift for you till the last minutes. So thank you so much.
And one final word of thanks for Binbin Wang and her team, and also for the Institute for the Advanced Study of Humanistic Studies, and especially Wang Qi and Naomi Zhang. Thank you so much for all the good work. Thank you.
好，谢谢大家，我们今天的这个对话就结束了。不用了吧？